and hand it over to you.
Okay, thanks, Lauren. Welcome everyone to today's Lunch and Learn. Today we're going to be talking about archiving master files, which is in job cost and payroll specifically. So anyone who's worked with me before knows I'm an old-fashioned user, so I launch the entire module, but I'll show you, but everything I do today can be accessed from the tree module of your desktop as well. So as we go into the job cost module, when you move into inquiries, for example, hopefully we're all familiar with seeing this window here with the new, current and history files. Okay, they are for your transactions, right? So when you post transactions through Sage, they pass through the new file. If everything's okay, they post to the current file. And then when you archive your transactions, they live in your history file. Okay, so that's what your transaction file is doing. And then logically, all your transactions accumulate at the master file level. So basically anything under your setup menu is generally a master file. So if we just have a quick look at the job master file, we can see, hopefully your system isn't as slow as this. I'm on the Thrive server, which is being rebuilt as we talk. So, right, so as we come into the job master file, if I just look up job 03001, we can see it contains the basic information of the address and whatnot. But if I move down to some of the other totals, the cost total tab, for example, these amounts here are what we call the accumulators, and they are the sum of all of the transactions. So all of the transaction types that have original commitment will sum up to this 1.478 million. And that is true for every number in this master file, okay? So the master file is holding a fair bit of data there. Okay, so hopefully we're clear in our minds the difference between your transaction files and your master files. So when it comes to archiving, and if you've done this before and you've moved transactions to history, that is just archiving transaction file, as the name suggests. Today we're going to move some jobs which are master file records. And the reason we do that is obviously once a job is finished, you can archive the transactions and they'll live in the history file. So if you archive the master file, it's actually going to remove it from the list of jobs. So not just in job costs where you go set up jobs from that list, but of course it affects every module wherever you need to draw a job number from and you hit the list button, it's going to reduce that list up because over time those lists can become quite unwieldy with jobs that are, you know, long gone. So this is a different process. So we're in the job cost module, tools, move jobs. Obviously, the first thing you always need to do is identify what jobs do I want to archive. Okay, so whether you do that as an inquiry or a report, for example, you could just bring up a job list and say, well, there's all my jobs. You just might want to move ones that have a status of closed. You could bring up, for example, you could add a new column to this and say, last cost update is before a certain date, and that will show you jobs that haven't had any cost activity for perhaps multiple years. You could bring in the project manager field and identify jobs that way. You know, you could say, well, this project manager hasn't been with us for a couple of years. It's time to archive his jobs. You could do anything, but you've got to identify the ones you want to archive. We'll go in there again and we'll go move jobs. So just gives you a bit of a warning message there. So you say yes. Okay, now this is asking for a destination file. So if you can see where I'm circling up the top, This is asking, where do you want to move these jobs to? And automatically, by default, it comes up, this is my live data folder, okay, construction sample data. What you don't want to do is move them to another folder within your live data folder. So in this example, I'm going to create my archive data folder on my C drive in a folder called customer data. I'm going to just create a new folder, and I'm just going to call it AA, and I'm just putting the A's in the front so it appears at the top of the list alphabetically. And I'm just going to call it archive data Janelle. If you've got multiple companies, you will need to create new data files. Separate data folders for each company. So if I go into that folder now, we can see it's empty. And what the system's going to do is create a new file called master JCM. The system is intuitively knowing that the extension is .jcm, so don't get hung up about that. And you just say, okay. Doesn't already exist. Do you want to create it? Yes, of course I do. And it's just syncing. And it's created that file initially. So now my choices are, do I want to move the commitments as well associated with this job? I'm going to say yes. Your choice. You can move the commitments as a separate process. And this is where you need to use your ranges or your conditions to isolate the jobs you want to move. So if you were doing it on a date, you could add a condition to say, last cost update is less than or equal to whatever date you want. And how many ever years, okay? You can put multiple conditions or one condition, but either way, you've got to isolate the jobs. Or you could use the range function. So in this case today, I'm just going to use the range, and I'm just going to archive jobs 03, 001, 02, and 03, the ones that are now highlighted black. If I say yes, of course, everything in Sage gives you a printed audit trail, so I'm just going to send that print out to my desktop, and I'm just going to call it archive, and I'll send it to a PDF file. And I say, okay, and start. And if we bring up while that's syncing, if we bring up our background task, we can see it's happening. A couple of things to always keep in mind. You don't want anyone else logged into the system when you do this, okay? You don't want anyone else possibly trying to access that job master file while you're obviously moving it and archiving it, because that could cause a file data collision and just, you know, lock multiple records, okay? That's just something to be aware of. So that's completed normally. We could go check the printout if we wanted. It's not really going to tell us anything exciting. But so now if I go and look at my job list, set up jobs, and just call up my list, jobs 03, 001, 2 and 3 are gone. Notice my first job is 004. So they've just disappeared off the list and been archived. If I get out, so you say, well, where did they go? So I keep shrinking down my job cost module. So you can see at the top right now, I'm in job cost timberline construction. But if I go to file and open company, and it's not on my list there because this is the first time I've done it, I can go specify a folder. And then if I browse through to the location where I saved it. So I saved that on my C drive in a folder called customer data, and there's my archive there that I created, AAA archive Janelle. And just as a pointed notice under there, I only archived my master.jcm, but the system's automatically created this PV data folder and this attachment folder, and that's perfectly normal. When you run this process, the system is automatically grabbing all the little background files and the gateway files and the really nerdy technical stuff that it needs to, okay? So don't think, oh, that's a mistake and delete it. The system is helping you. Okay, so this directory does not contain any data. Do you want to create it? You just say yes. And then, we'll give this a name. We'll call it AAA Archive Data Janelle. And I'm just going to copy that description and put it down here into my data folder description down the bottom as well, because they are what appears on your list. I'll show you that in a moment. So you just say, yes, I'm sure, I know what I'm doing. And if I cancel that now, and cancel that, and if I go back in there, open company, there's the data folder I just created, archive data Janelle. So basically what I've just done now is I've moved a heap of jobs from Timberline Construction up to archive data Janelle. So if I go into archive data Janelle now and open that as if it was a separate company, and go into my setup jobs, and it's just telling me that there's no general ledger file, there's no equipment cost, there's no payroll module, there's no AP module, there's no cash management module. They're all messages we expect to see because this is not an operating data folder. This is an archive data folder. But if I go in there now, there's my jobs 1, 2, 3 sitting in my archive data folder. Okay, so hopefully everyone's happy with that. I'll close that down now and bring up job cost again and go back into my live company. A couple of things you don't want to do is, sorry, I'll just bring that screen up again. So there's my 2 data folders. What you don't want to do is have your archive data folder living inside your live data folder. That kind of defeats the purpose. The only files that should be in your live data folder are those essential to its operation. So anything backups, archives, PDFs, Excel should not be residing in this network location here of your live data folder. Okay, make this one completely separate, and a good place is to have it perhaps parallel or beside your current data folder as a network location. Obviously, if you're not confident with your network locations, please talk to your IT people about the best place to put this archive data folder. You do only need to create this once. So for example, there was a few extra steps there because I created this once for the first time. But if you go to archive again next year, obviously your archive data folder already exists and you're just going to keep adding to it. And you can keep adding to it year after year. And you'll have lots of modules in there as well. You won't end up with just job cost, you'll end up with payroll and whatever else you want to pop in that data folder. So if I go back to my live data folder now, and we've done this already, but if I just have a look at my jobs, hopefully it won't be quite as slow on your live system. So we could see from this list, jobs 03, 00, 1, 2 and 3 are no longer here. So if you get 6 months down the track and someone comes to you and says, I can't find job 03, 001 anymore, what you don't want to do is set it up again. You don't want to do that because once you set it up again with the same job number, it is creating a new job in the system. So everything in your cost total tabs and your accumulators will be starting from 0. And then the second problem that will cause is 12 months down the track, when you go to archive the second iteration of job 03001, you'll get an error message. The system will say, I can't archive that job because that job already exists in your archive data folder. So you kind of end up with these messy multiple versions of the same job number. You might want to consider using your Sage security to restrict who can set up jobs to get around that problem. Now, if someone comes to you in 6 months and says, I can't find job 03001 and I really need it, you can just go back into your archive data folder and you can go and you can move it back. So just for kicks, we're going to move jobs. Yes, we know what we're doing. The destination. So again, you might need to check with your IT people because I'm in a slightly different, my network structure here on our Thrive servers will be different to a normal operating structure. But here's my construction sample data. So that's where I want to move my job back to. And I just say open. And then I'm just going to use my ranges function and I'm going to just highlight job 03001 plus its commitments because that's the job I moved by mistake. Again, just sending my printout to the desktop. I can never be bothered of thinking a print name. Hopefully your system's doing it automatically. Just saving my printout and I say, okay, and I go start. If we watch our background tasks, completed without any errors, beauty. Again, if I just now move back to my live data folder, back to Timberline Construction, you can also use your Sage security to restrict people accessing different data folders if you want your users to never go near that data folder. So back into Timberline Construction in my live data folder, if I say set up jobs, come on, you can do it. And we bring up our job list. There's job 03001 back in its original place. And if I just review, all its original accumulator cost totals are there, unharmed, untouched, like nothing ever happened. So you can just move things backwards and forwards. Don't forget, if you actually ever create a job and had the wrong job number or you just wanted to get rid of it because it was a bit of a schmozzle, you can always archive it over to your archive data folder to remove it from the list. Yeah, because we all know my theory. If at first you don't succeed, hide all the evidence. Okay, so that's the basic archiving process of master files. If there's any questions, sort of start typing them in to Lauren now and she'll feed them out. So anything I did just then, because I launched the entire job cost module, you can do via your tree version. So I'm going to do the payroll one now. And I'm going to use the tree. So I'm in payroll, tools, move, and I'm going, in this time, I'm going to move employees. If you're worried about doing a backup before you do this, you can. But, everyone should be doing daily backups anyhow. So last night's backup would be good enough. Again, you shouldn't have anyone logged into the system when you're going to move employees. And the first thing it asks for is your destination file. So if I go back to my C drive, my customer data, whoop, I think my mouse is running out of battery. And there's my archive data folder that already exists. I open that up, and I just say yes. There's the secret files that the system's created automatically for me. Say yes to all of these options. You've already done your analysis. You've already made the decisions about what employees you want to move. I don't really care whether they're terminated or not because things aren't up to date. And I'm just going to move whatever employees you decided on. Again, you could use the dates. You could say termination date is less than or equal to whatever. Printer setup, we always print to file. This is just where I'm just sending my print file to the desktop. It's the most boring printout. All it's going to say is 3 employees have been moved. That's the reason why I'm not getting hung up about this printout. Checking my background tasks. Those employees are now moved. If we want to check that, we can go to our options, open company. Again, back up to my archive data folder. Note this time I'm not being prompted to add it to the list with the specify folder option because it's already there. So I just say, okay, open that company. And if I go into payroll now, and just into setup, and employees. Oh, I'm on sample data here. Sorry, that's why I can't open that up. But trust me, the employees really will be there. That won't happen in your file. So, this is the electronic version of moving your employees from jobs from one filing cabinet to another. In the 200 years that I've been a consultant, I've never actually seen this go wrong. I've never seen anyone lose data. The 2 most common issues that crop up are that people archive jobs and employees that they didn't mean to. And as we've seen, that's easy fixed. You just move them back in the other direction. Hopefully you understood what I was doing there when I was doing the job. So that's an easy one. If you archive too much, that's fine. Just wait till the end of the day when no one's logged in and move them back and no one's the wiser. The other most common problem is that people will set up the job or the employee again. So the same job code or employee code now exists in 2 data folders. And that's not a good thing. You sort of want to avoid that because then the second incarnation will never, it will always error when you try and archive it 12 months later. So they're the only things to really watch out for. And of course, as I said already, if you're not familiar with your network locations of where to be creating that archive data folder, just talk to your IT people. But what you don't want it inside your live data folder. You want it beside, and then just use your Sage security to stop people getting into it. I think that covers everything I wanted to. So hopefully, if you've got any questions, type them in or unmute yourself.
Yep, I've just got one, Janelle.
Yep.
in the chat.
You're challenging me now to go to the
Sorry.
chat. Question from John. Okay, seems like a bad consequence if recreating a current job name the same. Right. You can have the same job name in your current data folder. Your primary key in the job cost module is the job number. So what you don't want is duplicate job numbers. You don't want the same job ID in your live data folder and your archive data folder. Yes, that's a bad thing. The only way to really stop that happening is make your staff aware that you've archived, and therefore, if they're not seeing a job that they want to see, then that, you know, just be aware not to set it up again. I'm a big fan of using the Sage Security to restrict who can set up new jobs. I guess that's your only real safety net, if you like. If you've got that security in your system quite wide open that anyone can set up a job, I think you're dicing with danger, not just for archive reasons, but for a lot of reasons. Hopefully that answers your question, John. I mean, payroll should already have fairly tight security, so setting up a duplicate employee ID, I hope the chances would be very low because your payroll people should be onto that. I think your jobs are your main danger zone, and I would use the Sage Security. And of course, just make sure your project managers are aware that, you know, hey, I did an archive on Friday night. So if you can't find things you normally look for, let me know. Any other questions?
That's everything in the chat box, so unless anyone else.
Okay. So that's good. I'm just coming on half an hour. Normally I go overtime. So if you want written instructions from what I've talked about today, please send in an email to help@thrivetech.com.au, and Lauren is going to tell you all about how to get the recording of what we've done today.
Yeah.
Thanks, Lauren. That's it for me.
Amazing. Thanks, Janelle. So I will get the recording online hopefully by the end of today, and I'll send everyone an email with the link to it. And yeah, if you need anything, just reach out to one of the team. But thanks, Janelle. That was great.
Thanks, everyone. Bye now.